Happy Wednesday. Let's see what's happening in Wayside School today. So, we are going to read 20, 21, 22, and a little bit more because this seems to be one chapter. All right. Mr. Kidswater's voice crackled over the loudspeaker. Mrs. Jules, send Eric to my office at once. He sounded mad. Mrs. Jules was confused. When did we get a loudspeaker? She asked. Louis put it in yesterday, said Jenny. Mrs. Jules was still confused. There were 3 Erics in her class. She didn't know which one Mr. Kidswater meant. Eric Fry was fat, but not short. Eric Bacon was short, but not fat. Eric Ovens was short and fat. Mrs. Jules chose the biggest Eric. Eric Fry. Mr. Kidswater wants to see you. Eric trembled as he slowly stood up. The other 2 Erics smiled. The principal's office was on the first floor. It's not fair, Eric thought as he headed down to his doom. Anytime any Eric does something wrong, I'm the one who gets in trouble. He stood in front of the principal's door. His heart beat very fast. He took a couple of breaths, then knocked lightly. Enter, boomed Mr. Kidswater. He turned the knob. He took one step inside. Then he stood with his back against the wall, as far away from Mr. Kidswater as he could get. Mr. Kidswater sat behind the enormous desk. He wore mirrored sunglasses so Eric couldn't tell where he was looking. Sit down, Eric, he said. Eric moved into the small metal chair in front of the desk. A bare light bulb hung above his head. Mr. Kidswater cracked his knuckles. We can do this the easy way, or we can do this the hard way, he said. It's your choice. I don't know what you're talking about, said Eric. I didn't do anything. So, it's the hard way, is it? Asked Mr. Kidswater. Well, very well. You'll talk one way or another. You'll tell me everything I want to know. But Mr. Kidswater pounded his fist on the desk. When was the last time you sharpened your pencil? Eric tried to remember, but he was too nervous to think. Wait. Let me think, he stammered. We had a spelling test on Friday, but I borrowed... Where were you yesterday afternoon at 12:15? Asked Mr. Kidswater. Yesterday? Asked Eric. I was here at Wayside School. I remember I ate lunch and then I played kickball. Mr. Kidswater smiled. Did you kick with your left foot? He asked. No, I'm right-footed, said Eric Fry. Grumbled Mr. Kidswater. Have you ever gotten your hair cut at Charlie's barber shop? Yes, said Eric, 2 weeks ago. Aha, Mr. Kidswater said. So you admit it. Do you know what a mug-warm griblick is? Eric Fry turned pale. No, please, he begged. I didn't do it. I'm innocent. You've got the wrong Eric. There are 2 other Erics in my class. Mr. Kidswater scowled. Now, so that's the way you're going to play it, huh? Well, that's fine with me. I've got it all the time in the world. He flicked on the microphone. Mrs. Jules, send me another Eric. 29 floors above them, Mrs. Jules looked at the 2 remaining Erics. Okay, Eric Ovens, she said. Eric Ovens shivered. His eyes filled with tears. Why me? He asked himself over and over again as he walked down the stairs. It's my parents' fault. Why did they have to name me Eric? Why couldn't they have named me Osgood? He tapped on the door to the principal's office. Come in, bellowed Mr. Kidswater. Eric Evans gulped, then walked inside. He sat in the little chair in front of Mr. Kidswater's enormous desk. Eric Fry was nowhere to be seen. What happened to Eric Fry? He asked. I'll ask the questions, barked Mr. Kidswater. But don't worry, Eric, he said gently. You have nothing to fear. So long as you tell the truth, he cracked his knuckles. Eric Ovens was very scared. Mrs. Jules always said that there was more than one answer to every question. He hoped he gave Mr. Kidswater the right ones. Did you have a spelling test last Friday? Mr. Kidswater asked. Yes, said Eric. How did you know that? I have my ways, Mr. Kidswater said slyly. Behind his mirrored glasses, when was the last time you sharpened your pencil? This morning, said Eric Ovens. Mauricia accidentally stepped on it, and did you play kickball yesterday at 12:15? No, I played tetherball. Right or left-handed? Right. Mr. Kidswater tossed a stapler at him. Eric caught it with his right hand. Mr. Kidswatter scowled. Okay, Eric, tell me this. Have you ever gotten your hair cut at Charlie's barber shop? No, but I will. I'll go right away if you want. You're not going anywhere, shouted Mr. Kidswatter. Have you ever heard of a mugworm griblick? Eric Ovens screamed. Upstairs. Mrs. Jules heard Mr. Kidswatter's voice resound on the loudspeaker. Mrs. Jules, send me the last Eric. On my way, said Eric Bacon. He hopped out of his chair and bounced down the stairs. He didn't bother knocking on Mr. Kidswatter's door. He just walked right in. What can I do for you? He asked. There was no sign of Eric Ovens. Have a seat, Mr. Kidswatter said. I just want to ask you a few questions. Sure thing, said Eric Bacon. He sat in the little chair. He leaned back with his hands behind his head and his feet up on Mr. Kidswatter's desk. He looked at himself in Mr. Kidswatter's mirrored sunglasses and took a comb out of his back pocket and combed his hair. His hair was very neat and trim. He had gotten it cut yesterday at 12:15 at Charlie's barber shop. Mr. Kidswatter cracked his knuckles. When was the last time you sharpened your pencil? He asked. November 11th, Eric Bacon answered right away. It was 3 minutes before 5 o'clock in the afternoon. I remember because my watch stopped. Where were you yesterday at 12:15? I was in the garden having tea. Did Mauricia step on somebody's pencil this morning? Asked Mr. Kidswatter. Yes. Whose? She stepped on everybody's pencil, said Eric Bacon. Are you left or right-footed? Demanded Mr. Kidswatter. I write with my left foot, but I kick with my right hand, replied Eric Bacon. Mr. Kidswatter scowled. Have you ever gotten your hair cut at Charlie's barber shop? No, I never got my hair cut, said Eric Bacon. I'm bald. This is a wig. Mr. Kidswatter took off his glasses and glared at him. Do the words mugworm griblick mean anything to you? Eric Bacon shook his head. I can look it up in the dictionary if you want. Mr. Kidswatter shook his head. I tried that, he said. It's not in there. He rubbed his chin. Okay, boys, you can come out now. Eric Ovens and Eric Fry crawled out from under the desk. Mr. Kidswatter looked at Eric. One of you is lying, he said. I don't know who it is, but I'll find out. And when I do, whoever it is will be very sorry. Now, I'll give you one last chance to come clean. Eric Fry trembled. Eric Ovens shivered. Come on, let's blow this popsicle stand, said Eric Bacon. He walked out of the room. The other two Erics followed. Mr. Kidswatter rubbed the back of his neck. He looked at the white card on top of his desk. The one that said Charlie's Barber Shop. Under that, in blue ink, it said, Eric, Tuesday, 12:15. He turned the card over, and on the other side, a left-handed person had written with a sharp pencil, Mr. Kidswatter is a mugworm griblick. All right, chapter 23, Teeth. Something terrible happened. Rondi grew two new front teeth. Rondi was afraid nobody would think she was cute anymore. Mrs. Jules was giving a health lesson. Always brush your teeth, she said, and remember to scrub behind your ears. But I'll get toothpaste in my ear, exclaimed Todd. Everybody laughed, except Rondi. She didn't want anybody to see her teeth. She hadn't smiled for a week. Mrs. Jules made Todd write his name on the board under the word discipline. At recess, Rondi decided to tell Louis her problem. Louis was talking to Dee Dee. Do you have any green balls left? Asked Dee Dee. I'm sorry, I've given them all away, said Louis. That's not fair, said Dee Dee. Why don't you ever save one for me? You know I can't do that, said Louis. If I save one ball for you, all of the other kids will want to me to save balls for them, too. Thanks for nothing, Louis, said Dee Dee, and she stormed away. It was Rondi's turn. She made sure nobody else was listening. Louis, will you help me? She whispered. Sure, Rondi. What's the problem? Asked Louis. Rondi smiled, showing Louis her teeth. Very nice, said Louis. And listen to this, said Rondi. She sells seashells by the seashore. Very good, said Louis. No, it isn't, complained Rondi. I used to whistle when I said words with S's in them. Nobody will think I'm cute. I think you're cute, said Louis. You don't count, said Rondi. Well, thanks a lot, said Louis. I didn't mean it bad, said Rondi. You think everybody's cute, even Miss Smush. That's why I like you. Thank you, Rondi. I like you too. Thank you, said Rondi. Will you please kick me in the teeth? No, said Lois. Well, why not? Asked Rondi. You said you liked me. If you liked me, you'd kick me in the teeth. You know I can't, said Lois. If I kick you in the teeth, then all the other kids will want me to kick them in the teeth too. Rondi scowled. Thanks for nothing, Lois, she said. She crawled into the bushes where nobody would be able to see her mouth. Louis, Louis, shouted Stephen and Jason as they ran toward him. Terrence stole our ball, said Jason. I wish you children would learn to share, said Louis. Make him give it back, said Stephen. Louis stared at something, then stopped. He twirled his multicolored mustache. Hey, Rondi, he called. Will you help me? Rondi crawled out of the bushes. You wouldn't help me, she said. Why should I help you? Well, Terrence stole their ball, said Louis. Make him give it back. Her? Asked Stephen and Jason. Me? Asked Rondi. Rondi's eyes lit up. Okay. Louis winked at her. That's a good idea, she said. That's a wonderful idea. She hurried across the playground. Stephen and Jason ran after her. Terrence kicked a red ball up in the air, then ran under it and caught it. Hey, Terrence, said Rondi, that's not your ball. You stole it. Drop dead, ketchup head, said Terrence. Rondi walked up to him, stared him straight in the eye, and said, In your hat, muskrat. That surprised Terrence. He took a step back. Then he collected himself and said, Dig a hole, Molly Mole. Rondi took another step towards him. Kiss a goose, Dr. Seuss, she replied. Terrence looked around at a group of kids that had formed a circle around them. Go to jail, garbage pail, he said. Rondi held her ground. Go to the zoo, Mr. Magoo, she retorted. Everyone was impressed by how brave Rondi was. Now give me the ball, she demanded. You want it? Asked Terrence. I'll give it to you, all right. He raised his fist in the air. Good. Let me have it, said Rondi. She smiled, showing him her 2 teeth. Terrence shook his fist at her. You're asking for it, he said. That's right, said Rondi. I am. Her teeth gleamed right at him. Terrence brought his fist back behind him. Rondi closed her eyes. Hey, look, exclaimed Bibi. Rondi's got new teeth. They're cute, said Jenny. Rondi opened her eyes. You think so? She said. No, you were cuter before, said Paul. I think she's cuter now, said Todd. They took a vote. 12 kids thought she looked cuter now with her new teeth, and 12 thought she looked cuter before. 3 thought she should keep just 1 tooth. So Rondi decided to keep her teeth. They were good for biting carrots. Uh-oh, she suddenly remembered. She ducked just in time. So I guess she kept her teeth, right? All right, one more chapter for today. Chapter 24. Another story about potatoes. Joe was next in line. He had forgotten his lunch. And what would you like, Joe? Asked Miss Mush. What do you have? Asked Joe. Potato salad, said Miss Mush. Anything else? Asked Joe. Nope, just potato salad, said Miss Mush. Mrs. Jules had made Miss Mush throw away the rest of the mushroom surprise, and she made Miss Mush promise never to make it again. Okay, I'll have potato salad, said Joe. Miss Mush smiled. She scooped a large glop of potato salad out of the vat and plopped it onto Joe's paper plate. Sherry was next in line. She had also forgotten her lunch. And what would you like, Sherry? Asked Miss Mush. What do you have? Asked Sherry. Potato salad. Well, what else is there? Said Sherry. Well, nothing, said Miss Mush. Okay, said Sherry, I'll have that. Potato salad? Asked Miss Mush. No, nothing, said Sherry. Joe was the only one who ordered the potato salad. Everyone else ordered nothing. He slid his paper plate over to the cash register and paid for his lunch. Then he went to the ketchup and mustard table. He looked at the grayish-white mound on his plate. He thought it needed more color. He squirted squiggly lines of yellow mustard all over it. Then he added several dollops of red ketchup. That's very pretty, Joe, said Bibi. I didn't know you were such a good artist. Thanks, said Joe. He looked for a place to sit. Hey, Joe, over here, called John. Joe sat next to him. Hi, pal, he said. Hi, good buddy, replied John. They were best friends. John had brought his lunch. He looked at Joe's potato salad covered with yellow squiggles and red polka dots. That's very colorful, he said. Thanks, said Joe. They both stared at it. I wonder what it tastes like, said John. Who knows, said Joe. There's plenty more potato salad, called Miss Mush. Who wants seconds? Nobody wanted seconds of potato salad. Several kids went back for seconds of nothing, but soon Miss Mush ran out of nothing. Finally, Joe picked up his plastic fork and stuck it into the glop. What does it feel like? Asked John. Lumpy and gooey, said Joe. He dragged his fork over the mound, swirling the mustard and ketchup together. Kind of spongy, too. The colors mixed with the potato salad. It turned pale orange. It looks like a face, said John. Joe laughed. He shaped it so that it would look even more like a face. Then he piled up some potato salad in the center, giving it a nose. John had a plastic spoon. He dug 2 holes out for the eyes, and then he made eyebrows. That's good, said Joe. He gave him a big smiling mouth. John made long, pointy ears. They both laughed at their creation. I wonder what it tastes like, said John. Who knows, said Joe. It kind of looks familiar, said John, like somebody I know. Who? Asked Joe. I'm not sure, said John. Joe noticed it too. It does look familiar, he agreed. I've seen that face somewhere before, said John. Me too, said Joe. The smile on the potato salad abruptly turned into a frown. Wow, did you see that? Asked Joe. John's eyes filled with terror. I just figured out who it looks like, he whispered. Who? Said Joe. Mrs. Gorf. The potato salad laughed. Ha ha ha, said Mrs. Gorf. Now I'll get you. You think you're so cute, don't you? Well, you won't get away from me this time. She wiggled her ears first, her right one, then her left. Quick, Joe, said John. Eat her. The 2 boys dug their plastic utensils into the potato salad and shoveled it into their mouths as fast as they could. Joe swallowed the final mouthful. Whew, said John. That was close. Joe rubbed his belly and sighed. They both stared at the empty plate. You know, Joe, said John, that didn't taste too bad. It was pretty good, Joe agreed. And they went back for seconds. The end of this chapter. So now we'll start chapter 25 tomorrow. Hope you guys are enjoying your day. And we are almost to spring break. So we will almost get to our break that will be so wonderful to not have school every day. We still are missing you guys so much, and have a great Wednesday. Bye, guys.